Hello everybody, Calamity here. Don't worry, I didn't ghost you like your last Tinder date. Today's video is going to be all about our favorite Oni, Arataki Itto, who's having yet another rerun banner in the next update. And if you didn't want to pull for our favorite fashionista, and instead you wanted to pull for him, no worries, I got you. This video is going to cover everything you need to know from his talents, weapons, artifacts, team setups, and we'll talk more about him towards the end of the video. That's a lot to cover, so let's get started. Actually, before we start, let me just go ahead and thank Sammer for letting me borrow her account. I do not own Arataki Itto on mine, so I have to borrow so I can make this video for you. And she's been a friend of the channel, and you've probably seen her in my comments in previous videos, so shout outs to Sammer again. That being said, let's go ahead and talk about his talents. The first one's going to be his normal attack talent called Fight Club Legend. Now, if you've been watching my previous videos, I've been saying, hey, this is just a normal, attack talent, nothing special here. Not in this case. In this case, there is something special here. So let's actually talk about it. Starting with his normal attack, it is a 4-hit combo. And on his second and his fourth hits of this combo, he will gain what's called Superlative Super Strength. I'm just going to call it Super Strength for short. It's a really long name. He'll gain 1 and 2 stacks respectively, so the second strike granting 1, the fourth one granting 2. He can have a maximum of 5 stacks, and if you gain another super strength stack while you have max, it will just instead refresh the duration of the existing one. Additionally, this is actually really cool, so pay attention. When you're doing Arataki Itto's normal attack and you stop to sprint or to dodge something and then you continue attacking, Itto will actually continue where he left off. So if you did 2 attacks, stop to dodge and attack, and then continued attacking again, he'll do hits 3 and 4, which is actually really, really cool. Other characters wish they had this, like Mia, but just keep that in mind so you actually have the full benefit of doing his whole combo consistently. It also doesn't get interrupted if you want to interweave his elemental skill in the middle of doing normal attacks. So really, really cool. Next, let's talk about his charge attacks. He'll do a special version of a charge attack called an Arataki Kesagiri. This is when he basically just keeps doing these upward strikes with his claymore, and these strikes will consume your super strength stacks. They are much more powerful than a regular charged attack. So the goal here is to try to get as many super strength stacks as you can. In fact, you have an indicator of how many stacks you have. You kind of see this face that starts to get illuminated behind Itto. As you gain these stacks, you'll see the full Oni face behind him, and that's how you know when it shimmers that, oh, you have full stacks. So go ham with his charge attacks and you'll get his special unique charge attack instead of the normal one. And if you do try to do a charge attack without any super strength stacks, you'll do what's called a Sachimanji Slash. That's the one you don't want. It does use stamina, whereas his unique one does not consume any stamina, which is really, really nice. And finally, his plunging attack, that is normal. That is regular. There's nothing fancy about it. So let's move on to the attributes here. So you can see his 4-hit combo has some pretty good multipliers in there. And then you can see that his Arataki Kesagiri slashes do way more damage, specifically that final slash doing almost 351% damage multiplier compared to the the Sachimanji slash, which is only 166.2% multiplier, and this is at level 9. And it costs stamina, so keep that in mind. Also, don't feel like you have to spend your super strength stacks as soon as you get them, because they do last for quite a while. So this can carry on from fight to fight, as they do last a whole minute. Alright, next up, let's move on to his elemental skill, which is called a Masatsu Sekashi Burst. A Kaushi Burst? I think I totally nailed that. Anyways, you're gonna do what Paimon calls Arataki Itto every time they meet up now, and you're gonna chuck your Ushi, or your bowl, at opponents and deal a lot of geo damage. Now, when this Ushi is on the field, a bunch of stuff happens. The first thing that happens is it will taunt surrounding opponents, so it's just like Amber's Baron Bunny, very similar. It'll also inherit Arataki Itto's max HP, and anytime the Ushi takes damage, Itto will gain a stack of super strength. So you can also gain Super strength stacks from your skill, which is really nice. And once the Ushi reaches 0 HP or the duration ends, it will leave the field and you will gain yet another super strength when it leaves. And then here it's just telling you that if you hold the skill button, you can kind of just aim where you want to throw the Ushi. And the Ushi is considered a Geo construct. Just in case you needed to know that for certain other characters, specifically our newest character who does synergize with Geo constructs, so technically they could work together if you wanted to, if you pulled for both of them. You can see this elemental skill is only at level 7, but the skill damage is still pretty high. So this can be much higher if you were to get it leveled, but I will say that this talent in particular has the lowest priority. You definitely want to get Arataki Itto's normal attack and his burst up as high as you can, and then the skill can follow afterwards. Other than that, it inherits 100% of Arataki Itto's HP, has a duration of 6 seconds, and a cooldown of 10. So in most cases, it's probably going to run out of duration before it runs out of HP. Unless you're fighting some really hard-hitting bosses. Last but certainly not least, Royal Descent. Behold, Itto the Evil. This is Arataki Itto's burst. It's really, really good. Basically, it's a bunch of buffs are going to happen, and one debuff is going to happen to Arataki Itto when you activate his burst. The first one being all of your attacks are going to be converted to Geo damage, which is really good, and this cannot be overridden, so don't worry if you have a Bennett C6 or you're using Chongyun or something like that in your team. You'll always do Geo damage no matter what. Arataki Itto just straight up gets more normal attack speed, which is fantastic. Also, you're going to gain an attack boost based off your defense. So with that in mind, we already want to try to build some defense percentage on Arataki Itto through his artifacts. Also, this makes it so your full normal attack combo now gives you a super strength stack for every hit, because it adds it to the first and the third strikes now. So every hit is going to give you super strength, so you'll be building that the max stacks really, really quickly, which allows you to do those charge attacks really, really quickly, and just overall more damage. And then lastly, this is a debuff. You're going to decrease Arataki Itto's elemental and physical resistance by 20%. So he's going to take more damage while his burst is active. But don't feel too discouraged about this, because you can easily mitigate this by simply using a shielder like Zhongli if you have him, or Layla. Doesn't matter, just get a shield on him and you can easily mitigate this downside. Also, make sure not to leave too early when you activate this burst, because it will immediately end the Oni King state. So just like most characters that have a special state. Let's take a look at the skill attributes here so you can see how much of your defense is getting converted to attack. It's a huge bonus. The attack speed is nice. Duration's 11. Cooldown is 18, and it only has an energy cost of 70, which not as expensive as other bursts out there, but we do want to get some energy recharge for Arataki Itto. Let's move on to his passive talents, first one being Arataki Ichiban. This is going to make it so that when you're using his special unique charge attacks, each slash is going to increase his attack speed by 10%. So he gets faster and faster as he does these unique charge attacks. And the cap on this speed is 30%. He'll also gain a resistance to interruption while he's doing this. Now, again, if you just use a shield, totally doesn't matter and you're totally fine. But just for those that don't have a shielder, I guess this is a nice way to sort of get some of the benefits of having a shield. Next up is Bloodline of the Crimson Oni, and very simple here. You're just going to gain more damage for your charge attacks based off your defense. So more incentive to build defense on Arataki Itto. Last but not least, again, Woodchuck Chucked. This is for teapot mains out there. This is going to make it so that when you hit trees, you have a 25% chance to gain an additional log. So just go ham on in those trees and you'll end up with a lot of extra logs. Next up, let's move on to weapon options for Arataki Itto, and these ones are really, really simple. So same right here is a whale account. So she does have his signature weapon, the Red Horn Stone Thresher, and obviously this is easily his best weapon. But let's say, hey, Panda, I'm free to play. I don't want to spend, money or the gems on the weapon banner. What can I go for? The best free-to-play option that I can recommend to you is the White Blind. Hopefully you get yours to level 90, not 70, but as you can see, the White Blind gives you a ton of defense percentage as a substat, and then you can read here, normal and charge attacks increase both your attack and your defense, which is basically double damage. You want to get this to Refinement 5. Increases both your attack and defense. And it stacks 4 times, so this is a big damage increase. And this is a really solid weapon overall, and you can craft this as early as Leeway. So you should have the recipe for it early on, and you should be able to get it to Refinement 5 at some point. So really good weapon, and honestly, it's going to beat out any other option for free-to-play players out there. Now, if you did spend a little bit of money and you bought the Battle Pass, then another weapon I can recommend is the Serpent Spine. This is a very good weapon, gives you crit rate, gives you more damage. It's just really, really good. More refinements also mean more damage as well. Skyward Pride also going to be an okay option, just because this is a weapon you can get on the standard banner. It's not guaranteed, but maybe some of you have it. The energy recharge substat is, it has its usage. It means you don't really need to focus on it too hard when it comes to building his artifacts, but it's very meh. Right? I'd still probably use the White Blind over a Skyward Pride in my opinion. You can also try to get him the Blackcliff Claymore version that's available in Paimon's Bargains. Excuse me. That one's okay as well. It's this sword right here, the Slasher. Again, nothing amazing or fancy, but it's better than any of the 3-star options that you might be using until you get some better 4-star options. Artifacts. Let's talk about artifacts, and you don't want to do what Samurai has here, or at least not the 2-piece Wanderer's Troop part. The 2-piece Husk of Opulent Dreams, though, that's the good stuff. In fact, Husk of Opulent Dreams is his go-to set. It is the best set you can get for him, and it's going to provide the most damage. Let's take a look what the game says. So even in the game, most of the Arataki users out there are using a 4-piece Husk of Opulent Dream set. Others are using a combination of the Husk and the Gladiator's Finale. And 1% of you are using the 4-piece Gladiator's Finale set. That's fine if you just got this character, or you're just, you haven't farmed in a Husk set with good subsets yet. That's totally fine. Feel free to use other 2-piece attack percentage artifact set pieces as well as the geo damage ones. I believe Archaic Petra and the new Nighttime Whisper set also have geo damage as 2-piece, so those will also work as well. You can also go 2-piece Emblem of Severed Fate for energy recharge. And yeah, you have plenty of options. Doesn't have to be Gladiators, Finale, or Husk, but Husk is going to give you a really nice boost in damage just because of the 30% defense. I can also recommend other artifact sets to you, just in case you're wondering. The Desert Pavilion Chronicle might not sound like something he would want to use, but it does give you a huge chunk of charge attack damage, so in the off chance you have some really good substats on that set, maybe you could use that on him. And the other one is the Retracing Bolide. As I mentioned before, using a shield with Arataki Itto is really good and recommended. So if you do also have some good artifact pieces from that set, you can also use that as well. I do not recommend farming most of these sets with your resin by going to the domains. I instead suggest that you farm for other characters and go for the strongbox method of farming most of these sets, including the Husk. Even the Husk can be resin is inefficient because of the Ocean Hued Clam being the other set in that domain. So not everyone's going to want it, but ultimately you should still try to go for the Husk of Opulent Dreams. It is going to be the best one. Now, with that being said, what substats are we looking for on our artifacts? And it's pretty easy because Arataki Itto is a main DPS, so we're looking for that crit rate, crit damage, always going to be the big one. But next up, unlike other DPSs, because he does scale with defense, you want defense percentage. That's going to be your next big priority right after. Then after that, we want energy recharge, because energy recharge, again, think of Arataki Itto like Raiden Shogun in a way that like he does his big damage when his burst is active. Just like Raiden Shogun does her big damage when her burst is active. You always want that burst uptime to be as close to 100% as possible. So getting a lot of energy recharge is going to be important. But don't forget, when it comes to his teams, they can also help funnel some energy as well. So I would suggest around 140%. Energy recharge is a good solid amount, but if you can get more without sacrificing offensive stats, go for it. And then after you meet your energy recharge needs, the rest is just filler offensive stats like attack percentage and flat defense or flat attack. Now, don't forget that because he's Geo, Elemental Mastery is completely useless for him, as Geo characters don't really benefit from Elemental Mastery, and it's not going to help with your reaction damage. Right, now let's talk about main stats for your Saiyans, Goblet, and Circlet. And fortunately, it's very straightforward. Defense percentage is going to be your best option for the Saiyans. I do see a small percentage of you went for energy recharge and attack. I guess that's okay if you got some really bonker substats, but defense percentage is going to give you the most damage, so try to get one with some good substats. Goblet should be also pretty obvious here that geo damage bonus is what we want, but using a defense percentage or attack percentage goblet instead early on is okay. Lastly, the Circlet, crit rate or crit damage main stats are going to be your go-to, whichever one you feel like you are lacking. And you can use a defense percentage main stat once again early if you do not have a good crit rate or crit damage main stat with some good substats as well. Next up are Constellations. As we can see here, Samer does have his C1, but I'm going to tell you right now that Arataki Itto is not a character that you need to get any constellations of. You don't need to have, one or two for him to just do well. He is perfectly fine and capable at C0 and is capable of doing all the content without any constellations. But if you decided to invest in him, I'm going to quickly go over these constellations and what they do. They're just going to give him more damage, basically, and more quality of life. So C1, gonna make it so that you gain more super strength stacks when you use his burst, so more damage basically. C2, gonna make it so that you get a shorter elemental skill cooldown as well as more energy when you use his skill, so this is gonna help with energy recharge stuff. C3, C5 gonna increase his skill and burst respectively. Getting +3 to your skill is the meh, and this is probably his worst constellation because it doesn't do much for you. C5 getting +3 to your burst though, that is going to be pretty nice, but also not like it's not like an insane increase. It's a nice increase, nothing crazy. C4 is going to make it so your party members gain 20% defense and attack for 10 seconds. This is going to be great for Arataki Itto himself, but also if you're using defense based supports like Goro, also going to get a boost there, which is really nice. I want to briefly talk about C6 because it's kind of funny. It's called Arataki Itto Present, and it's going to straight up increase his charge attack crit damage by 70%, which is huge. But on top of that, you have a 50% chance not to consume a stack of your super strength. So in theory, your super strength charge attacks could go on for a really long time, dealing a ton of damage. And I just think that's really funny, but it's also whale territory, so it's just something I'm never going to be able to experience in this game. Feels bad. Let's talk teams for Arataki Itto, and the one I have before you right now is probably going to be one of his best and free-to-play friendly teams here. We have Goro because he buffs geo damage and defense, which is perfect. He also usually carries a Favonius Warbow, which also is going to help funnel more energy for your Arataki Itto's burst uptime. Zhongli here can also be equipped with a Favonius Lance, which also is going to help with energy issues that your Arataki Itto might have, and he's here to provide his shield and nice burst damage with his burst. But yeah, the shield is also what keeps Arataki Itto safe and comfy, even though he has increased damage taken when his burst is active. And it is here for the healing and for the attack boost as well. So plenty of damage for Arataki Itto. Going to be seeing some big numbers once all the buffs align correctly. Here's some more team examples you can use. So there you can use Farina with Arataki Itto, and they synergize well because Farina just synergizes with anybody, and then her burst will greatly increase everybody's damage. You just need to make sure you have a team-wide healer, and in this case I have Charlotte as an example. You don't have to use her. You can use Chi-Chi if you want. You can use anybody really, Barbara, Kokomi, whoever you have on your account, as long as they can heal your team consistently to keep up with Farina's HP drain. You're good. Charlotte also usually has a Favonius Codex or other support weapons to help out with energy recharge needs. Albedo here is to deal extra damage thanks to his elemental skill. He does great off-field geo damage that can synergize with Itto's charge attack, so lots and lots of geo damage basically happening all the time. Alright, this isn't exactly a team I would recommend, it's more of just teammate options. So we have Navia here because regardless of what team you want to use Itto in, I always just suggest at least one Geo teammate so that you can activate Geo Resonance, which is going to be honestly really good. It just buffs damage and it decreases Geo resistance of your enemies by 20%. So big damage increase there. So just pair him up with any Geo character, please. Navia, just an example, she does her elemental skill twice. So she generates a bunch of energy particles. Her elemental skill also hits really hard, so she's good for a bit of burst damage while your Itto's, maybe his skill and his burst are on cooldown for a bit. So swap to Navia, get some big damage in real fast, set up some other characters buff, and then swap back to your main. Arataki Itto does a mixture of normal and charge attacks, so he can synergize with characters like Jin Cho, Yelan as well, or if you're using Zhongling. All of them are fine. You'll work with any of them and you'll get extra, off-field DPS in addition to his on-field charge attacks. I have Shinobu here just as a healer. You don't have to use them. I just thought it'd be cool because they're always together, the whole Arataki Itto gang. It's funny that they don't synergize that well despite being, in the same gang, but it is what it is. And she can be a useful teammate to Itto though. You can have her use like a Favonius sword to funnel some energy and she'll keep him alive with her elemental skill as well. Here's what a mono Geo team would look like if you really wanted to go that route. Again, Goro for the same buffs. Ningguang just here to be a little bit more free to play friendly. She's here to be an energy funnel as well as a little bit of burst damage and her charge attacks. Noelle here to be the shielder and the healer of the team if you don't have Zhongli. The problem with using Noelle as a healer, at least for like stuff for Abyss, is that she needs to be on the field to heal, and that can eat up a lot of your main DPS's damage time. So not the best team I would use. I would definitely try to swap in a different healer or Zhongli in this case, and you'd have a much better mono Geo team. But this is more of a free to play friendly option because it consists of all 4-star characters. We are at the end of the guide. Now, usually this is the part where I would showcase me playing through the Spiral Abyss with this character, and then I'd say, hey, look, this is him performing in it. But this time around, I've decided not to because Samurai has not built Itto in a really... I'm not saying you need, pinpoint perfect artifacts to do Spiral Abyss, but you at least need a good set, and not having the 4-piece effect of the Husk of Opulent Dreams, that's missing a lot of damage there. Not to mention the fact that you're also missing some main stat options, like we saw the defense percentage circlet, which is nice, but missing some crit rate, some crit damage there would also help a ton more. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to do either half of the Abyss with Samurai, in particular's Arataki Itto, and I'm sorry for that. But I am not saying it's impossible or even really hard to do it with him, because in fact, I'm sure it's doable and it's manageable and it's fine. The other thing is also that Samurai also doesn't have Goro built or Albedo built optimally, so he's missing out on a lot of key teammates that really help elevate his damage and make him an overall better character. And, it's just really hard to do that for Spiral when you don't have a lot of the the character build and the teammates built. So that being said, he is still a really solid character, a very easy to play character, very easy, like, you know what your strategy is. Build those super strength stacks and then go unga bunga, you know, with his big Oni club for big damage. And that's pretty much it. Rinse and repeat, do it again, build the stacks up again, unga bunga. That's pretty much all I have to say. He's just a really solid character. Now, obviously, he has been power crept, but so has everybody else because of, you know, characters like Nuvolette coming into the fray. Where Navia, you know, the brand... well, she's not the newest Geo character anymore. We have Chiori. I don't know how good Chiori is as of right now because I'm recording this before the update. We'll see what her numbers are looking like when she's out. But, you know, just because there's, you know, much stronger options these days doesn't mean our favorite Oni. He's definitely gone down in popularity, but he's still a solid character. I don't mean that as a pun for Geo. With that being said, that's going to be it for this video. If you have any questions about Mr. Itto here, feel free to ask me in the comments down below. I'll do my best to try to help you out. If any other fellow Arataki Itto mains out there, if you're still playing, you know, if you watch this video to judge my guide, feel free to also leave your own advice for future potential Arataki Itto mains. But don't forget to leave a like and or subscribe to the video if you like this kind of content. I do plan to make more in the future. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.